This video was intended to inform and educate the public.
That witness characterizing the shooting as an execution.
This will not end well.
What you gonna do when they come for you?
Hello everybody, welcome once again to another video here on the Junkyard News. And in today's video news stories, we have an incident that comes out of Dorchester County, South Carolina. Tragic incident that has left a community in shock after an officer-involved shooting that led to an entire complex being in lockdown for hours. And in this video, we're also going to touch base and briefly speak on why it looks like police do not seem to value life, where they have all types of less lethal tools available at their disposal, and yet they always seem to use their guns instead of attempting to de-escalate and use less lethal options. So the incident that we're going to be covering before we get into the topic is footage that has been released now from a bystander's video. Yes, somebody in the right place at the right time who took out their phone to record something they thought may go awry, and it actually did. Now, according to a press release issued by the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, the incident unfolded when a deputy arrived on the scene to take a man into mental health custody. Yeah, I can already tell this isn't going to end well. These type of situations, these mental health calls, seem to be getting out of control. Now, during the initial interaction between the deputy and Robert Rose, Rose allegedly was unwilling to cooperate and allegedly struck a deputy with a hatchet in his hand before retreating into his apartment and barricading himself inside. And law enforcement then spent several hours trying to negotiate with Rose. And then finally, Rose did emerge from the apartment, but it's reported he was holding 2 hatchets. Now, in this bystander video, this footage, law enforcement officers can be heard shouting commands for him to drop the hatchets with no deputies around him. Of course, they're all taking cover, pointing their firearms at him. When they decided enough was enough, they were going to end this now. And that's exactly what they did.
These are the moments before Robert Rose was shot and killed by law enforcement. Law enforcement is heard yelling commands before 6 pops ring out.
No rubber bullets, no canine, none of that. So why does it seem that police in situations like this do not value life and always resort to using their sidearm instead of less lethal tools? And that is a really deep and important question, I believe. The use of deadly force by police is a huge topic with many layers, including training, culture, policies, and in some cases even systemic issues. And there are several reasons why officers often resort to shooting instead of using less lethal options. One may be training and muscle memory. Many police departments focus heavily on firearm training, but don't spend much time on de-escalation or less lethal options. And in stressful situations, officers tend to revert to what has been trained on the most. And what would that be? Use of their sidearm. Of course, fear does have an effect on people in split-second decisions. Officers do occasionally find themselves in stressful situations where they have to make a life or death decision, and many are trained to perceive threats quickly, sometimes leading to overreactions. You know, some police departments do have a warrior mindset rather than a guardian mindset, which can lead to a greater reliance on lethal force instead of less lethal options. Tasers, pepper spray, and rubber bullets don't always work sometimes, so officers may default to a firearm if they believe other methods may not stop what they perceive as a threat. And then we have militarization of the police, because many departments do have access to military-style weapons and equipment, which can contribute to a mindset that prioritizes force over other solutions. And there are a lot of people out there, like I, that feel that in any lethal situation, all a cop has to say is, I was in fear for my life and safety, or the life and safety of my fellow officer. And it's like everything gets whitewashed and everything's fine. And cops do tend to always revert to, I was in fear for my life, as a go-to justification in police shootings. and it frequently results in no charges or accountability, even when video evidence may be out there to contradict the officer's statements. Now, in the United States, courts use a legal standard from Graham v. Connor back in 1989, which says that an officer's use of force must be judged from the perspective of a reasonable officer on that scene, rather than in hindsight. This means that if an officer claims they felt threatened, it's often enough to justify the shooting, even if the threat wasn't even real. And of course, you have qualified immunity. Qualified immunity protects police from civil lawsuits unless there is a clearly established precedent that their exact actions were unconstitutional. And this makes it very difficult for victims or their families to go after and sue officers or municipalities, even in cases where deadly force was unnecessary. And then you do have police unions, as well as internal investigations. Because we all know police unions are extremely powerful and often shield officers from consequences. Many departments allow officers to watch body cam footage before writing their reports, giving them the chance to align their statements with visual evidence. Internal investigations are also notorious for siding with officers rather than holding them accountable. And then you have prosecutors and the ties they have with law enforcement. Prosecutors rely on police to build their cases, so they often hesitate to charge officers even when the evidence suggests wrongdoing, because this close relationship does create a conflict of interest and makes independent accountability extremely rare. The legal system also encourages deference to officers' judgment, meaning if an officer says they were scared, it's often enough to justify any use of force that is used. But once again, my favorite is the fear narrative. Police training often reinforces the shoot first mentality by emphasizing that hesitation could get them killed. This leads to officers seeing almost every situation as a potential deadly threat, even when it's not. The media and police departments also push the idea that law enforcement is constantly under attack, even though policing is not the most dangerous profession we have. Until laws change and accountability becomes real, this cycle will likely continue. Now, I'd like to ask you, and please comment, what do you think needs to happen to shift things in the right direction? Comment your answers and your opinions below. Now, as far as this recent event goes that we're reporting on, in the footage that was obtained by local news agencies, once again, law enforcement officers can be heard shouting commands before multiple gunshots are fired.
Videos uploaded by the Junkyard News are helped in part by viewers just like you. You can show your support for this channel by clicking the thumbs up, sharing our videos, or hitting that all-important support button on our channel page. Don't want to miss a video or a story? Make sure to check us out and like us on Facebook at The Junkyard News.